The Western world/the colonialists are in a panic. They cannot accept that the Africans are waking up and they do not want the colonialists. Meloni is becoming like Macron, whom she criticized before. Meloni is another member of the cabal. The EU is in a tough economic situation created by the crooks in Brussels. The sanctions were another bad move against Russia that killed the EU as expected and strategized by the US. Washington/the Anglo-Saxon world does not want a strong Europe. Remember the US blowing up the Russian gas pipeline? Migration is not an accident but was caused by the West for years by their colonialist policies to steal and keep the Africans in poverty to continue their criminal activities. While the West was getting billions of dollars worth of natural resources and rare metals for free, they did not help Africa to rise. Africa needs a new agricultural revolution to kick out all the colonizing nations with their investments and ask for reparations. Israel is still receiving reparations for the Holocaust by the German government, so should Africa. Unveiling the truth, the wake-up call for Africa and the panic of the Western world. In recent times, a seismic shift is underway, one that reverberates through the corridors of power in the Western world and beyond. Africa, long subjected to exploitation and subjugation, is awakening from its slumber, challenging the status quo imposed upon it by centuries of colonialism and imperialism. As an investigative journalist, it's imperative to delve deep into the historical background and present-day facts surrounding this awakening, shedding light on the fears gripping the colonialists and the intricacies of global power dynamics. Historical background. Colonialism's legacy. The African continent bears the scars of centuries of colonial exploitation, with European powers carving it up, plundering its resources, and imposing systems of governance that serve their interests. Economic exploitation. Western colonialists ruthlessly exploited Africa's natural resources, enriching themselves at the expense of African nations and perpetuating cycles of poverty and underdevelopment. Migration crisis. The West's colonial policies, coupled with neo-imperialist interventions, have fueled migration from Africa to Europe, exacerbating social tensions and humanitarian crises on both continents. The current landscape. African awakening. Across the continent, there is a palpable sense of empowerment and defiance against the continued dominance of the West. Political movements and grassroots activism are challenging entrenched power structures and demanding self-determination. Rise of nationalist leaders. Figures like Meloni in Italy are emblematic of a growing wave of nationalist leaders who reject the dictates of the Western establishment and advocate for a reassertion of national sovereignty. EU economic struggles. The European Union finds itself mired in economic turmoil, with deep-seated issues exacerbated by flawed policies emanating from Brussels. Sanctions against Russia, orchestrated by Western powers, have backfired, further destabilizing the fragile European economy. The power play. Machinations of the cabal. Behind the scenes, shadowy networks of power brokers manipulate global affairs for their own gain. Figures like Meloni are portrayed as pawns in a larger game, serving the interests of a hidden elite. Anglo-Saxon hegemony. The Anglo-Saxon world, led by the United States, views a strong and independent Europe as a threat to its global dominance. Actions such as sabotaging the Russian gas pipeline highlight the lengths to which they will go to maintain control. Reparations and justice. Calls for reparations for Africa, akin to those granted to Israel for the Holocaust, gain traction as the continent seeks redress for centuries of exploitation and oppression. A new agricultural revolution is proposed as a means of breaking free from dependence on colonial powers and charting a path towards self-sufficiency. Conclusion. The awakening of Africa represents a seismic shift in global power dynamics, challenging the entrenched interests of the Western world and exposing the injustices perpetuated by centuries of colonialism. As investigative journalists, it is our duty to uncover the truth behind the panic gripping the colonialists and to amplify the voices of those advocating for justice, sovereignty, and empowerment across the African continent. Only through reckoning with the past and forging a new path forward can true equality and justice be achieved on the world stage.